just to have a great guy at the top of the ticket and Donald J. Trump, but you're also blessed to have a great senator from the state of Nevada, Sam Brown. Thank you, Sam, for running, for doing this. We love you, man. I should say Sam will be a senator because, unfortunately, you guys have got one of the worst senators, a person who pretends to be a reasonable moderate. They always do that. But then she gets to Washington. She doesn't support Nevada values. You know who will support Nevada values is the great Sam Brown. Sam, thank you for everything you're doing, man. We are thrilled to be joined by Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony. Lieutenant Governor, thank you, man, for being here. Thank you for your leadership. We have got one of my dear friends, the great Senator Mike Lee from Utah. Mike, good to see you, man. It's been a few months. And then, of course, we've got the whole crew here. Steve Daines. Steve, great to see you, man. Wow. And Steve's lovely wife is even here in Nevada. Sam, you got the all-star crew here. And you guys are also one last person I want to thank for being here and for all of his great leadership. You guys are blessed to have a great state GOP chairman in Michael McDonald. Michael, please say hello to people. Thank you, man, for everything that you're doing. Now, I got to tell you, I look every single day. I check with the political team at the Trump campaign, and I say, how we doing? And every single day, we just get a little bit closer and closer, and I can hear it in the voice. They're saying, my friends in the state of Nevada, we are doing pretty damn well with the Trump campaign. You guys are doing a great job. You're doing a great job. So, in each state I got to check because, of course I'm spending, we're going to multiple states a day at this point in the campaign. But now, with early voting in Nevada, it is over. So we just got to make sure if you haven't voted yet, get your absentee ballots in if they're still outstanding. Or go on November the 5th and vote for Donald J. Trump to take this country back and give the American people peace and prosperity again. Now, I want to ask here, who's already voted? It's pretty good. And who's going to vote on Election Day? Also pretty good. Well, I want to make a request to all of you who haven't voted, and actually even those of you who have. I want you to get out there and I want you to vote 10 times for Donald J. Trump. Now, I was told we have 47 reporters back there, and they're all ready to write a story that J.D. Vance comes to Las Vegas and encourages voter fraud. Here's the way we're going to vote legally 10 times. I want you to get yourself to the polls. I want you to take 9 of your friends and family so that we can take this country back. That's how we vote legally 10 times. But remember, the state of Nevada was decided last time by 34,000 votes. That is a very small number of votes. So every single thing that we can do in this final stretch is going to make sure that we give the American people the leadership that they deserve. Think about this. We all of us who care about politics, it's easy to get caught up in red team versus blue team, Republicans versus Democrats, and of course we're thrilled to have a number of Republicans, independents, and Democrats who are on the Trump team, because we want common sense back in government. I'm sure we got a lot of Democrats and independents just in this room. Thank you. But we've got to give the American people the leadership they deserve. Think about this. Our fellow citizens are struggling right now. Our fellow citizens can't afford to buy groceries because Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote on trillions of dollars in new spending, helped by Jackie Rosen. Our fellow citizens can't afford to buy housing, especially our young people can't afford the American dream of home ownership, even in the great state of Nevada, because interest rates are too high. We're not building enough houses. And importantly, thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've got American homes that are going to illegal aliens. Well, Donald Trump thinks those American homes ought to go to American citizens, and that's how we make the American dream of home ownership affordable again. We've got our fellow citizens. I mean, I talk to people every single day who are struggling with addiction, who know somebody that's struggling with addiction, who lost somebody because their teenager went to a party and, did something that a lot of teenagers do, right? They succumb to peer pressure. But 20 years ago, succumbing to peer pressure would lead to a headache or maybe a lecture from your parents. Now, thanks to that open border and the fentanyl brought in by those Mexican drug cartels, a lot of kids are making innocent teenage mistakes, and they're paying for it with their life. And I promise you that in 3 short days, we're going to make war on the Mexican drug cartels. No more of this poison, no more of this crap coming into our country. Now, I got to say, let's a couple moments of bipartisanship here. You maybe didn't expect me to come to Las Vegas and be so kind to the Democrats, but I want you, if you're a praying person, and I know a lot of you are, I want you to spare a prayer for Governor Tim Wals, my Democratic colleague, who, think about this. Tim has got the toughest job in American politics, my friends. He's got to go around and pretend that Kamala Harris is fit to be the president of the United States. When you're having a tough job, when you're having a tough day at work, when you're working late hours, when you're working a little too much overtime, just remember, at least you don't have to do what Tim Wals has to do, which is go around and try to persuade the American people that Kamala Harris is somehow fit to be the president of the United States. That's tough work. That's very tough work. Because think about this. We all know Kamala Harris, she cast the tie-breaking vote on trillions of dollars in new spending. She came into office bragging about undoing Donald Trump's successful border policies. Steve Daines and Mike Lee were there to see it. They said they were going to open the border. They opened the border, and now Nevada families are struggling with the consequences. Kamala Harris came into office saying that she was going to undo Donald Trump's successful economic policies. And now we've got our fellow citizens who can't afford to buy groceries, can't afford their car payments. Credit card delinquencies are at 9% in the United States of America. Think about that. That means 1 in 10 of our fellow citizens can't pay their bills right now because Kamala Harris refuses to do her job. So again, when Tim Wals goes around the country and says that Kamala Harris is going to fix it, remember, Kamala Harris broke it, and Donald J. Trump is going to be the guy who fixes it. Kamala Harris has the audacity to stand up before the American people and say, on day one, we're going to make life more affordable. Or she'll say, on day one, we're going to get serious about border security. Kamala, day one was 1,400 days ago. What the hell have you been doing the whole time? Stop talking about doing your job and actually go and do it. I've never seen anything like this in American politics. You've got a candidate who is the sitting vice president and has been for 1,400 days, who for years bragged about having an important role in all of the policies that the American people are frustrated by, and now you would think that she doesn't even know who Joe Biden is. Kamala Harris is the one person, she's the sitting vice president, and she acts like Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen. She doesn't want to talk to Joe Biden. She doesn't want anything to do with Joe Biden, even though she bragged about the Biden-Harris policies for 4 years. How can we possibly expect Kamala Harris to fix what she herself broke? How can we believe her slogans and her campaign plans when the actual record of Kamala Harris's governance is an economy where most Americans can't afford the basic necessities of life? And my running mate, he got famous in some ways by uttering this line, that I think that in 3 days, the American people, the people of Nevada, are going to say to Kamala Harris, you are fired. Go back to San Francisco where you belong. We don't need you in the Oval Office. Now, again, I think it's important. I think, again, here I am. I'm going to be bipartisan again because I'll say one good thing that Kamala Harris does, my friends. I think every time that she does an interview, she gains us about 50,000 or 100,000 votes. So I will say that for Kamala Harris. Now, you will never hear me. You will never hear me complain about this job. It is other than being married to that beautiful lady who walked me on the stage. Yusha, I love you, honey. It's so good to have you. Other than being her husband, the honor of my life is to get to stand up here and ask all of you to make me the next Vice President of the United States. What an incredible testament it is to this country that I get to do this. So you will never hear me complain about this job, save this one time, because here's the sacrifice that I make for all of you. I watch Kamala Harris do interviews on The View so that you don't have to. That is, look, it's a life of public service, my friends. I asked for it. But here's what she said on The View just a couple of weeks ago. And remember, she's trying to run as far away from Joe Biden's record as possible. She's trying to pretend that she has no responsibility for the last 4 years, even though she's the sitting vice president. But when she doesn't have a teleprompter in front of her and she gets a softball question, what would you have done differently over the last 4 years? Kamala Harris says, nothing comes to mind. An important moment of honesty. Nothing comes to mind. Now, I will say, I think that could be the slogan of the Harris-Wals campaign. Nothing comes to mind. Think about it. It'd be a hell of a lot more honest. What would you have done differently over the last 4 years? Nothing comes to mind. What would you do to fix the border, Kamala Harris? Well, nothing comes to mind. What ideas do you have for lowering the cost of groceries and housing for American citizens? Nothing comes to mind. It actually is the one moment of honesty you've seen from Kamala Harris in this entire campaign, and it revealed that Kamala Harris is the candidate of more of the same. More broken dreams, more open borders, more Americans who can't afford the cost of groceries. And I happen to think, my friends, that we are ready to deliver change to the American people. Common sense economic policies, prosperity for our citizens. We're ready to make Donald J. Trump the President of the United States, and we're going to do it together. I see a few very beautiful kids in the audience, and I'm thrilled you guys brought them. But, you know, if I was the Democrats, I'd ask you guys to go register them to vote. But I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. Only legal votes here in the state of Nevada. That's what we want. But I want to bring up a friend of mine, and then I'll say a few more words after he comes off the stage. But, you know, one of my dear friends in American politics, and one of the people who knows as much about the sacrifice of Donald J. Trump as anybody is, of course, his family, right? Because it's not just President Trump that sacrificed, it's also the family. And of course, I've become dear friends with the president, and I'll tell you a little story. When he was, well, it's ridiculous to say, the second assassination attempt, not the first, and it's a shame, of course, that we've had any, but we've had two since the start of this campaign. I was sitting at home with my son in Cincinnati, and I get a call from the president. It's, of course, before the news becomes public, and he says, JD, they tried to do it again. I said, they tried to do what? He said, they tried to shoot me again. And he told me what had happened. I'm like, oh, my God, sir, are you okay? You know, of course, physically you're okay, or you wouldn't be calling me, but that's a pretty traumatic thing. And he says, yeah, I'm fine. I'm kind of pissed off, though, because I was about to make a birdie on the 6th hole, and they wouldn't let me finish. And I had sort of a realization in that moment that, you know, look, you don't have to agree with everything that I say. You don't have to agree with everything that Donald Trump says. But really the option here is between a president who has shown courage under fire. Like, what you want in the Oval Office is a guy who can take a traumatic moment like an assassination attempt with defiance and good humor. And that's what we have in Donald J. Trump. You don't want somebody who's running away from the American media. You want somebody who has courage under fire, and that's our guy. But another guy who's shown some courage in some very tough circumstances is, of course, his family, and in particular, his eldest son. My friends, give a warm welcome to Donald J. Trump Jr., who's going to say a few words.
Hello, Nevada. How's everyone doing? How great is this guy? Well, JD, I want to thank you for the kind words, but, candidly, having done this now for a while, it's not a sacrifice, it's an absolute honor. It's an honor to fight for you guys. We've seen what they've tried to do to my family and me, and I understand that I am not the upstanding citizen that Hunter Biden is. I know. Now, I have a feeling if that was my laptop, it would be a little bit of a different outcome. JD would say, Don, can you call in from Guantanamo Bay? Maybe give a little pep talk. Guys, this is where we are as a country. We have an incredible opportunity to take back what is ours. To take it from the bureaucrats. To take it from these insane people. JD is right. Kamala Harris isn't going to be the candidate of change that the media keeps telling you she is. Because if she would have been, she would have probably done something by now. It's not that hard. You're the vice president to the most absentee president in the history of America. Someone who's spent 41% of his presidency on the beach in Delaware. Raise your hand here if you could maintain employment if you were gone 41% of the time. Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah, that wouldn't work at the Trump organization with my father either. That'd be, I'd get the Cobra. You're fired really quickly. But that's the case. And that's before you actually get into sort of the mental deficits. So you think that would be an incredible opportunity to do something. Then you become the nominee in what we were told is the most democratic process in the history of democracy that actually didn't involve a single vote cast. Others call that a coup. But either way, you're now the nominee. All these things that you're going to do differently, why not do them now? Why not start? Why wait till day one? Remember day one? I'm like, well, you have the power to do it. Now you have the authority. It's because there's no intention of doing anything differently. Rather than cater to Americans, rather than do what's good for you, any community in America, the Democrat Party said, you know what? It's not going to be good because it goes against our woke nonsense and all of the policies we've been pushing. So what we will do is we will open up the border and we'll let in tens of millions of people, unvetted, unqualified, and we will just make them dependents. If they're dependent, they will vote for Democrats in perpetuity. And congratulations, folks. You have the privilege of paying for all of that. You do? Doesn't have to be that way. We can vote that out. And you know how I know how bad it is? Besides the jobs report that came out yesterday where they added 12,000 new jobs. And by the way, all of those were government jobs. Because they got to pad the file a little bit because it was a disaster. I'm sure it'll be revised even worse when they do their usual revision thing like they've done with every economic statistic, every crime stat. You look at the border, 600,000 criminals let in. That's Biden-Harris administration statistics. 600,000 criminals. They know about it and they let them in. 13,000 murderers. 16,000 sex offenders and rapists. Imagine a government that sees that. You have them at the border. You understand this because you obviously know it's their statistics. And you say, you know what? Let's let them in anyway. What could go wrong? Divide that up by the amount of communities, say counties, in America. What is it? It's dozens of murderers, rapists, and thousands of criminals spread evenly across America. They're usually probably sending them to red states. What could possibly be the gain of this? It's insanity, guys. It doesn't have to be this way, but one guy can't do it by himself. My father, not even with JD's help, can do it. You saw, he was president of the United States. They canceled him. They canceled the most powerful man in the world. They cut off his communications. They minced his words. Like everything else, they take the first part of a sentence, but not the last part to conveniently drive their narrative. But with all of you behind him, with all of you fighting for your future, for your livelihoods, for your children's well-being, we can win and we can fix everything. And now what's incredible, It's not just my father. Think of the people who have joined up that want to help. Whether it's RFK Jr. on health. Looks like Ron Paul jumped in yesterday with the libertarians. How about we allow Elon Musk, the Einstein of our era, to do what he can do better than anyone? Think about it. In a few years, he's outperforming NASA, that has like a 75-year head start in the space race, and he's doing it as a private citizen. How about we let that guy fix some things? So, you can choose, folks. You can have all of the people that have recently endorsed Kamala Harris. Funnily enough, it happened magically after Diddy got arrested, and they all seem to have a connection. I don't know. It seems like a coincidence. Or you can have a team of brilliant people who are specialists actually fixing things. It's funny, I tell this story a lot because it resonates, because I'm not one of these liberals that pretends to be something they're not. I'm pretty honest about who I am. I'm pretty self-aware. I'm the son of a billionaire from Manhattan. Last summer, I was coming back with two of my boys. We went on a father-son fishing trip, and I had a 10-year-old, a 14-year-old, and me, and they were hungry. So we went to McDonald's, where my father is now a fry cook. Guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to get canceled and fact-checked. The media told me it was staged. I was like, no way. Really? I mean, in Joe Biden's economy, my father does have to work at McDonald's and be a garbage man just to get by. Donald Trump has to work 3 jobs. But I knew we were in trouble beyond all of the other statistics, all of the other metrics would show it, when I ordered McDonald's for me and 2 young children, and it was $48. Because I can tell you something, guys. If Donald Trump Jr. has sticker shock at McDonald's, we have a serious problem. So again, guys, for the next couple days, early voting's close here, but you need to call your friends. You need to drive them to the polls on Tuesday. If you've voted already, you have all the time in the world. Whatever you would do if you woke up on November 6th and Kamala Harris was president-elect, yeah. Oh, yeah. Whatever you would do to get a mulligan, whatever you would do to get a do-over, do it now. Do it for the next 4 days. You got to work like you're the third monkey in line for the ark and it's starting to rain. Right? Guys, we can fix this. We have an incredible team of people. I want to thank JD for all of the incredible work that he's doing. I want to thank Usha for putting up with it. I know, trust me, I know it's not easy. I know it's not easy, but he's a fighter. And more importantly, what we also have in JD is we now have America First bench. We have people that can now carry that torch, people who have become and come out and been unafraid to stand up to the tyranny of our government and to fight for all of you. So guys, thank you for everything. Thank you for what you're going to do over the next couple days, for all of the efforts that you put in. I can assure you this, if you're fighting alongside of us, we will never, ever, ever give up. We will always have that same resolve that my father showed on July 13th when they tried to kill him. So you guys, do your part, and we're going to make America great again. Thank you so much, Nevada. You guys are the best.
All right. Well, thank you, Don. And let me just pick up where Don left off here, because he talked about this abysmal jobs report that just came out yesterday, I believe. And you heard Don put the nail on the head here, which is that 12,000 jobs were created last month, and all of them were in the government sector. We actually lost last month 28,000 private sector jobs. We lost 46,000 manufacturing jobs in the United States of America, and we know that so many of those manufacturing jobs are the foundation of the middle class in the United States of America. They're also the foundation of American self-reliance. Donald J. Trump believes that in America, we ought to make more of our own stuff with our own people in our own country instead of relying on foreign countries to make our stuff. It's common sense. And you know, one of the biggest drivers and the biggest drivers of Kamala Harris's failure and the biggest contrast between her and Donald J. Trump is that for the last 4 years, Kamala Harris has waged war on the American energy sector. She's made it harder to drill, made it harder to frack, made it harder to build pipeline to get oil and gas from one place to the next. And when Donald J. Trump is president, it's very simple. We're going to drill, baby, drill. That is going to do... That's going to do more to lower energy costs, but it's also going to do more to lower costs on everything. You know, when Kamala Harris, they ask her this question, they say, well, you know, what are you going to do about lowering the price of groceries and gasoline, lowering the price of housing? And she'll say, well, I grew up in a middle-class family. Or to Don's point, she'll say, you know, when I worked at McDonald's, I made the hash browns, and I was very, very good at it. And anybody with an ounce of common sense is saying you didn't answer the question. What specifically are you going to do? And importantly, what are you going to change about what you've already been doing for the past 4 years, which has driven up the cost of goods? Think about this. If the truck driver who's delivering the groceries to the grocery store is paying 45% more for diesel, all of us are paying more for our groceries. If the guy delivering the lumber to the job site is paying 40% more for gasoline, then all of us are paying more for housing. If we want to unleash the American economy, if we want to lower prices for our fellow citizens and create more private sector jobs, we have got to stop buying oil and gas from tin pot dictators all over the world. Let's buy it from our own people, our own territory, and our own country. And there's so many contrasts, so many differences where Kamala Harris wants to open the southern border. President Donald Trump is saying, if you came to this country illegally, pack your bags because in 3 months you're going back home. That's a very simple difference. Where Kamala Harris has facilitated the Mexican drug cartels doing business in the state of Nevada and Arizona and all over our country, Donald J. Trump is saying, let's go to war against those drug cartels and stop the flow of poison into our country. Where Kamala Harris is going around bragging that she's going to raise your taxes. Look at the details of her tax plan. Don't trust the slogans. Her tax plan, she is bragging that she's going to raise taxes on American families to the tune of thousands of dollars per year. By the way, while she's rewarding foreign countries and foreign corporations for shipping American jobs overseas. You know what Donald J. Trump wants to do? He wants to cut your taxes and penalize the corporations and the countries that are shipping American jobs overseas. It's very simple. But the biggest contrast of all is not over public policy, it's over respect. Because while, yes, Donald Trump and I have been criticizing Kamala Harris and her terrible economic record, what we would never do is attack the citizens of this country for disagreeing with us politically. And that's something that I think every person in this room, I'd ask you to follow the leadership of President Trump. Don't follow the example of Kamala Harris, because every single person, I guarantee in this room, knows somebody who's planning to vote the wrong way in 3 days. And by the way, spend the next 3 days trying to convince them to vote the right way. But don't do what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and Joe Biden and the Democratic leadership have done. Don't cast aside friends and family because they disagree with our politics. Donald J. Trump is the president of prosperity for all of us, whatever our political affiliation, because we love this country, and that means loving the people who live here. You know, the events that we did yesterday, I guess this room's too full, but the events that we did yesterday, we had to the side or behind me, we had a giant garbage truck to draw attention to the fact that Kamala Harris's boss is calling her fellow citizens garbage instead of trying to persuade them, instead of trying to convince them that Kamala Harris has a plan for their future, they are attacking the people of this country for having the audacity to think that Kamala Harris has done a bad job. So in many ways, the most fundamental difference is not between any particular policy, though there are a lot of differences. The fundamental difference is that Kamala Harris and her Democratic Party bosses call us garbage. Donald J. Trump wants all of us to have a better life, and we're going to fight for that every single day. You know, it's so interesting in these closing stretches of the campaign. I think you see the difference between the leadership styles and the character of our guy versus Kamala Harris. And you look at what Kamala Harris is talking about. She's running her entire campaign on, well, you can't trust this thing that Donald J. Trump says, even though Donald J. Trump actually delivered it during his 4 years in office. She's spending her campaign lying about what Donald Trump has said, what Donald Trump has done, taking it out of context, and attacking her fellow citizens as garbage. This is not the way to close a campaign if you love this country. Think about this. Why isn't Kamala Harris saying, here's what I did to lower your grocery prices? Because she can't say that. Why isn't Kamala Harris saying, here's what I did as vice president to close down the southern border? Because she can't say that. Why isn't Kamala Harris bragging about what she has done to make your life better? The simple answer, she can't brag about it because she hasn't done it. Because the very policies that have made your life worse are policies that she bragged about and supported for 4 years. And now, 3 days before an election, she's trying to pretend that she's somehow different or will be different than she has been for the last 4 years. We need to reject that lie, reject that kind of dishonesty, and remind our fellow citizens that Kamala Harris has failed, Kamala Harris broke it, and Donald J. Trump will fix it. We need to remind our fellow citizens that the contrast between Donald J. Trump and Kamala Harris is not just in what they've said or what they propose to do. The difference is in what they have actually done in government. For the first time in the lifetime of every person in this country, we're not just talking about proposals and plans, things on a website. We're talking about what they actually did in government. And I think it's useful to contrast the America of Donald J. Trump and the America of Kamala Harris. In Kamala Harris's America, we have the highest inflation in 40 years. In Donald J. Trump's America, inflation was at 1.5%, and Americans could afford to live a good life. In Kamala Harris's America, wages are stagnating and the economy is shedding jobs. In Donald J. Trump's America, we were adding jobs and wages were rising as fast as they had in 40 years in the United States of America. In Kamala Harris's America, the border is open and our communities have been flooded with fentanyl. In Donald Trump's America, the border was closed and our neighborhoods were safe and secure. In Kamala Harris's America, she tries to censor her fellow citizens or call them garbage for having the audacity to notice that she did a terrible job. In Donald J. Trump's America, we are going to fight for every American citizen, whatever your background or whoever you voted for. In Kamala Harris's America, she'll wag her finger at you and complain for you laughing at a joke. And in Donald J. Trump's America, we have a pretty good time because we love this country and you can have a good time. So the question before us is not whether you agree with me on every issue. It's not whether you agree with Donald J. Trump on every issue. The question is whether you want peace and prosperity for your fellow citizens or whether we want to double down on the failed leadership of Kamala Harris. The question is whether we believe that we actually had peace and prosperity when Donald J. Trump was president, and we did. Or do you believe that somehow Kamala Harris is going to do something radically different over the next 4 years than she did over the first 4 years? The answer is no. We know the answer to that question. So let me leave you with this last thought, because, again, I think it's so easy to get caught in the red team versus blue team. But remember, we've got a lot of good Democrats and independents who are on our side, who are fighting alongside of us every single day. We've got Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, as Don mentioned. We've got Brian Kemp and Nikki Haley. But the point here is not just to beat the Democrats, as fun as it will be. Trust me, I'm going to enjoy beating Kamala Harris more than any person in this room come November the 5th. It's going to be fun. But I want you to remember the stakes and remember what we're fighting for. It's not just to win an election. It's to give the American people better leadership. You know, when I think about the future, I, of course, can't help but think about it through the eyes of my 7-year-old, my 4-year-old, and my 2-year-old. And I talk to all these parents who have lost a kid because their kid took something that was laced with fentanyl and they never got a chance to lecture their kid or to ground their kid. That simple teenage mistake took their child from them. I want my kids to grow up in a country where it's safe enough for them to make mistakes and learn from it rather than that mistake become a death sentence. I talked to a woman who told me that for 40 years in good times and bad, she and her husband had done steak night on a Friday night, but they stopped doing steak night last year because under Kamala Harris's policies, groceries became simply too unaffordable. I want us to fight for every citizen who works hard and plays by the rules to be able to afford a nice steak at the end of the week because we have prosperity for all of our citizens and everybody who lives here. I want to be able to look our proud veterans and active service members in the eye and tell them that when we send them to some foreign country, we do it for the defense of the United States of America and not to be the policeman of the world. I want the young people who tell me they're worried about being able to afford a house or being able to afford a family to be able to buy that beautiful home, to be able to start a family, because in the United States of America, if we're not fighting for our families and for the next generation, then we are failing, and that is what Kamala Harris has done. I want a better life for our fellow citizens. I want prosperity. I want security. I want peace. And the unfortunate truth is that the American people deserve to have a better life. They deserve to have better leadership than what they're getting today. And the only way to change that is in 3 days to vote for Donald J. Trump as the President of the United States. God bless you, Nevada. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Hello, Detroit auto worker. Let me thank you for your time. You work a 40-hour week for a living. Just to send it on down the line. Hello, Pittsburgh steel mill worker. Let me thank you for your time. You work a 40-hour week for a living. Just to send it on down.